everybody, and welcome back to the United Stand. We are bringing you our first interview on the pre-season tour, and we have with us the lovely Melissa Reddy from Sky Sports. Thank you for joining us.
It is a pleasure, even though Orion's interrupted my first cup of coffee for the day.
Honestly, it took like a few hours to actually get a cup of coffee today. I was like asking everywhere and couldn't find it. I thought coffee was still like a big thing in America, but we finally got one, and hopefully you can get back to that. We will be trying not be too long so you can get back to that coffee.
If you see me sipping during this interview, please forgive me. Bear with me.
I don't think anyone's going to be frustrated at that, don't worry. But let's get into it. Manchester United on tour. I wanted to first ask you, because obviously, we see you on Sky Sports talking about all these things all the time. Erik ten Hag somehow got through last season and he's still Manchester United manager. Ineos are backing him with transfer activity and also new appointments in coaches as well. What is the mood around Erik ten Hag at the moment within Manchester United?
I was actually told recently that Erik ten Hag is in his strongest position as Manchester United manager as he's ever been, and they say the last time they felt that he was as concrete in his position was when he won the League Cup final, which at that point anything he asked for he could have got. And I think he's in that position because obviously there was the idea to replace him ahead of the FA Cup final. The result, but more importantly, the performance in that final meant that there was some considerations to be made, because the reaction from the fan base would not have been good had they sacked him right after the cup final. So then they've gone away, Ineos, they've met with a series of other managers, got to the point of discussing financial packages with De Zerbi and Thomas Tuchel, and they look at everything and they decide Erik is still the best man for the job. The fact that they went around Europe scouting managers, speaking to them, discussing financials, and still going back to Erik, tallied with that cup final performance and the victory. And the fact that in negotiations, when they went to Ibiza to see him, he said to them, the way we communicate needs to change. It needs to be open communication. I can't go ages without hearing from you guys, as was the case during the summer. There needs to be professional respect. We need to have a strong bond, because that's the only way we're going to move forward. If we have competing aims or ideas, or we're not being honest with each other, we can't really progress. And in those negotiations, he also kept his transfer veto in his contract and got the extension, obviously. So all of those things really solidify his position, and that's why he's getting the support now, because if you're going to stick with him, there's no point doing it if you're not going to fully back him.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously Erik ten Hag, we were in the press conference yesterday, he seemed really confident. He spoke to you and said that he feels like he's in a really good position as Manchester United manager, and he believes in himself, and that's really important. I feel like when you're going to be an authoritative figure, a Manchester United manager, even when you have had a poor season, he still backs himself massively. And in terms of supporting him for next season, obviously we've already brought in Joshua Zirkzee and Lenny Yoro. Is Erik ten Hag pushing for more transfer activity?
I think they're all actively assessing the market. There's a few things they want to do, but there's moving parts involved. And I think if they get their outgoings right in the manner that they want to, then there's room for plenty more activity. So you look at it, I think one of the main areas they want to strengthen is the left side of defense. They've looked at a number of centre-backs that are comfortable playing on the left side of defence, but also they've looked at out-and-out left-backs. Ideally, you'd want someone who's comfortable either being the left-sided defender or the left-back. And he's really, really keen on that because it offers balance, and when Lisandro Martinez is injured, it creates a big problem, as when Luke Shaw is injured, the balance is just not there, not just defensively, but in United's offensive play. Aaron Wan-Bissaka potentially could be departing. West Ham are really interested in him. They're trying to negotiate. United want around £15 million. They're trying to negotiate that down. But then that opens up an avenue to get a right back in. And they're looking at the lad from Bayern Munich, who they have been in talks with. So as you see the moving part, if Wan-Bissaka goes, they get a right back. Then they would like a midfielder. Again, then there needs to be the ability to maneuver in order to get that midfielder. Will Scott McTominay go, stay? That would have a knock-on effect. And then Victor Lindelof could leave. That means, if they stick to just getting a left-sided defender, they could just get one in. But there might be a possibility of bringing in another centre-back, depending. One person we know won't be leaving is Harry Maguire, because he told us on Sky that he had talks with the club. They told him he's part of the future. They're keen for him to stay. They like how he's conducted himself, because he had a really tough period. And honestly, the character he's got to come through that, and for parts of the season, he was their best player.
He gives off, well, every time that I've seen him speak or, he's conducts himself, he always comes across super professional. That's one thing that you can absolutely say about him. And it is really interesting that, because a lot of people talk about the domino effect of the transfer window, and it feels like Manchester United are just in that situation now where, you're just waiting for one player to move and things might start shifting. It's like Casemiro as well.
One thing I will say is, in the past, I've always had the feeling that United are waiting for everything to fall into place before they do something. And oftentimes it felt as well like the deal had to pretty much be a certainty in the bag. Like you mentioned Casemiro, that's interesting, because Casemiro's agent came to United and said, he's available, this would be the cost you want. So that's like streamlined, that's really easy. Whereas what I've seen with Manchester United so far this summer, with the new leadership team and stuff in place, there's a lot more ambition, ballsiness, because you could sit back and wait for the outgoings before you made any purchases, especially with PSR being so tight. But they've gone and done 2 deals where, Euro especially, where there was a lot of interest in him. And from a coveted club, Real Madrid could have convinced him to stay a season and got him on a free. They've done that with so many players. They've done that with one of the best players. That's their routine now, isn't it? They've done that with one of the best players in the world. So it would have been well within their power to convince him of that. But the vision United are selling now, and how they're acting with more authority, I think that's important. And I know they've got so many things in process, so it's not like they're waiting for a player to leave before they look at what midfield options are. They've spoken to a bunch, midfielders, of left-sided defenders, right backs, all of that. So when the time comes, the deal's pretty much already lined up and they can pull the trigger. So I think they're a lot more proactive and on the front foot than I've seen the club before.
Would you say, in terms of, you speak about Victor Lindelof potentially going, I know there's been some interest in him and potentially Manchester United are open to selling him with Harry Maguire staying. Do you think, say if he did leave the club, that opens the door for them, for example, De Ligt to come in, like you said, straight away? Because obviously we know he's agreed the terms with Manchester United. It's just getting him at the right fee and having, somebody kind of move out. Is that sort of the model that you're talking about there?
Yeah. And I think United want as strong a squad as possible with cover in every position, but quality cover. Obviously, in some cases, you'll never get as good. If you've got like a 9 out of 10 left back, your deputy or the other person in that position is not also going to be a 9 out of 10. It's impossible, because that one's not going to be happy that he's not playing. But they want to have the quality where there's not a massive drop-off between your starter and who's deputizing. And I think they kind of have to think that way as well, because of the injury situation. Yeah. You can't put yourself where you spread so thin, because the knock-on effect of that is just more injuries, because the players are overloading the ones that are fit. I wouldn't be surprised if things turn out the way they want, if there's 2 new defenders in terms of that central/left side, plus a right back if Wan-Bissaka goes. So I think defense will have some rejigging still.
Yeah, it's really exciting for a lot of Manchester United fans. And I mean, if I was selling the project as well in terms of game time, I'd be like, Johnny Evans was brilliant for us last season, but he never expected to play as many games as he did. There's always going to be games there for players to be playing for Manchester United and proving why they should be starting. But last but not least, because I don't want to keep you too long, you've got coffee to get back to, but I wanted to ask you about Ruud van Nistelrooy, René Haken, the new coaches that are coming in. Was that Erik ten Hag pushing for that? Is that an Ineos thing? Is it like what you talk about, the togetherness that they kind of bring in?
I don't think Ten Hag ever wanted to change his coaching staff and get rid of Van der Gaag, he's worked with very closely. They get on really well, they're friends. But I think sometimes you have to understand that if the environment requires a change, and if people are looking at it and assessing it and multiple people are saying the same thing, and if your best interests or your intention is to get the club to the best position possible, then you take that on board, and that's what he did. And all the choices of the coaches has been led by him. It's his picks, and that's important as well. You can't be a manager with people forced onto you. I've seen that situation at one of United's rivals, and it doesn't work out. It's a unhealthy setup. But I watched training yesterday, and Ruud was doing the attacking automizations drills, trying to create repetition in offensive play so it becomes habitual to the players and they have an identity. And it's going to be really easy or interesting to see if we can easily spot some of the patterns we saw in training yesterday, because that means it'll be coming off. But the players were speaking to me about the aura he has. Like, you just know, like, it's Ruud van Nistelrooy. Like he knows what he's talking about, what he's doing. So there's that. But I spoke to Andre and Anna yesterday, and I thought it was really lovely because he was talking about working with the new goalkeeping coach. And then he paid tribute to all the coaches that have left, because he said he had such a difficult opening 6 months at United. And the only reason he got through it, apart from like his self-belief and stuff, was the advice and the time and effort the coaches had plowed into him. And he just wanted to thank them for that. So that was good. Ten Hag said there's renewed energy, there's a dynamism about the team, and I think I can see it. I think I can feel it. A lot of them have said, we want the FA Cup final performance to be the norm. We don't want you guys to keep speaking about it and bringing it up like it's some, wow, spectacular thing, which it was, because no one was expecting it. It was not the norm last season or recently at all.
I think Paul Merson said they should build a statue for Erik ten Hag if he won the FA Cup and then he went and won it. We're Man United fans, and like we go down there and you expect, but nobody expected that. And
so they were like, we don't want you guys to talk about this like it's something spectacular. We just want it to be like, well, Man United played really well again, as they usually do. So with the players saying that, the attitude sounds right. It's now just getting the application. And they all spoke about as well the feeling with the new leadership structure in place. Interviewed Christian Eriksen, and he said, Melissa, we spent last season hearing so much about it, reading so much about this new structure, and Dan could be coming, and this one and that one, and everything dragged on. He's like, but now they're actually in place, and we can feel the difference. I think it's also been very, very helpful that Dan Ashworth, Sadeh Brailsford, Omar Barada, and Jason Wilcox are all here on tour. I saw them for large periods with Erik ten Hag yesterday during training and afterwards. So they're clearly trying to, create this strong bond and have everyone pulling in the same direction. And that's the only way to get success. And United playing Arsenal today, and I know Arsenal are a template that they're looking to follow. So Jim Ratcliffe, and when you look at how Arsenal transformed themselves so rapidly, only because they did all the right things, and the right things sometimes are the small things, basic things. Getting rid of people that don't create or lend themselves to a culture of excellence, who might be incredibly talented, might have a long association with the club or whatever, but they're not elevating the standards or even reaching the standards that you're supposed to reach at the club. And then simple things like having a playing identity and trusting the manager, keeping faith with him, strong relationship between Mikel Arteta and Edu. So all of these things, I can see that they're looking at Arsenal and thinking, yeah, we've got to follow. This is a good model to follow. Let's do it. So now let's see if they pull it off.
And they stuck with Arteta as well when he was in such a poor position. That could be maybe a key factor in keeping hold of Bruno Fernandes as well. He's spoken about the ownership being key.
Yeah. With Bruno, there were so many stories about him and the potential of him leaving, and there was, all the speculation. And for 1 second, I never thought Bruno Fernandes is leaving Manchester United, because when you speak to him and when you spend time with him, you understand how much this club means to him. He actually wears this club. Like, it's on him all the time. He assumes so much responsibility. I know he gets grief sometimes because he can get frustrated on the pitch and it becomes quite visible. And that's fair enough. I think that's an understandable criticism. It's the right kind of criticism. But he genuinely cares about this club, loves this club. And in those talks with the new owners, he said, you guys need to be more aggressive, more ambitious. We need, like, facilities-wise, in terms of recruitment, in terms of logistics around the squad, everything needs to be better with Manchester United. And I think they could see themselves from his passion and stuff for the club, just how tied he is to United. So there was never a sense that he was going to leave, but I think in his talks as well with the ownership, he knew that they were going to put a whole new system in place and processes in place that's going to help United get back to where they want to be.
That's really exciting, especially for all the fans watching, because, Bruno Fernandes is such a popular player within the fan base, and to have that sort of player that's putting the messages across that the fans want, it's nice for the United fans to see that their captain is doing that. But look, Melissa, thank you very much for talking to us here in Los Angeles. I hope you enjoy the rest of your stay. We'll catch up with you more, hopefully.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much. You can get back to your coffee now. You actually I don't think you even had one sip throughout the whole thing.
Might be cold now.
Yeah, we'll try it. There'll be a new one for you. You're from Sky Sports. You can get what you want. But anyway, thank you for watching. Hit a like on the video, please, everyone. Get your comments in down below. Any more questions, anything else you'd like to see on tour. Thank you to Melissa for joining us, and we will see you on the next one.